It was a cold evening in the middle of winter when Sarah stepped into the grocery store. Rubbing her hands together to chase away the chill, she had just finished work and was only planning to pick up a few essentials before heading home. As she wandered through the aisles, she noticed a young couple standing near the checkout lane. Their two small children clung to their parents, their wide eyes filled with confusion, as their mother quietly whispered to her husband. Sarah could tell something was wrong. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but she overheard the cashier reading out the total, and the father hesitated before pulling out his wallet. He flipped through it, his fingers shaking slightly, before letting out a deep breath. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "I think we have to put some things back." The mother's face fell as she quickly glanced at the bags of groceries. Milk, bread, a few cans of soup. Nothing extravagant, just the basics. Her little boy tugged at her coat. "Mommy, I'm hungry," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Something in Sarah's heart ached. She had seen struggles before, but there was something about this family. The exhaustion in the father's eyes, the worry in the mother's tight grip on her purse, the innocent hunger of their children, that made her step forward before she even had time to second-guess herself. "Excuse me," Sarah said softly, placing a gentle hand on the mother's shoulder. The woman turned, surprised. Sarah gave her a warm smile. "Please, let me cover this for you." The couple's eyes widened in shock. "Oh no, we couldn't possibly." The father started, but Sarah shook her head. "It's okay," she insisted. "I'd really love to help." For a moment, they hesitated, exchanging a glance, but when they saw the kindness in Sarah's face, the mother's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Sarah pulled out her card and paid for the groceries as the children beamed up at her. When she handed the bags back to the couple, the father cleared his throat, clearly overwhelmed. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "This means more than you know." Sarah simply smiled. "Just pay it forward when you can." With that, she turned and walked out of the store, the cold air hitting her face. She didn't expect anything in return. She just hoped she had made their day a little easier. Days passed, then weeks, and Sarah didn't think much more about that night at the store. She continued with her daily routine, unaware that the small act of kindness she had shown would soon come back to her in a way she never could have imagined. Then, one evening, a knock at her door changed everything. When she opened it, she gasped. Standing there was the same family she had helped weeks ago, their smiles wide, their eyes filled with something she couldn't quite place. Excitement, gratitude, maybe something even bigger. "We've been looking for you," the father said, his voice thick with emotion. "We have something for you." Sarah blinked in confusion. "Oh, you really didn't have to." The mother reached for her hand, gently squeezing it. "Please," she said, smiling through unshed tears. "Just let us do this." And that was the moment Sarah's entire life changed. What they did next was something she never could have expected, something that left her speechless, overwhelmed, and questioning how a simple trip to the grocery store had led to this. Stay tuned, because this story is just getting started. Sarah stood frozen in her doorway, her mind racing. She hadn't expected to see the family again, let alone have them show up at her home like this. The father, Michael, was holding a small envelope in his hands, gripping it tightly, as if he was afraid she might refuse whatever they were about to offer. His wife, Emily, gave Sarah a warm but nervous smile, while their two children peeked out from behind them, their eyes filled with excitement. I don't understand," Sarah finally managed to say, looking between them. "What's going on?" Michael let out a deep breath, glancing at Emily before speaking. That night at the store, you changed everything for us, he said. And we've been trying to find a way to thank you ever since. Sarah shook her head with a small laugh. You don't have to thank me. It was just a small act of kindness. Emily stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. To you, it might have been small, but to us, it was everything. Sarah could see the deep emotion behind her words. She hesitated, unsure of what to say. Finally, she stepped aside and gestured for them to come in. As they settled into her modest living room, Sarah noticed how much lighter they seemed compared to the night at the grocery store. Back then, their faces had been weighed down with exhaustion and worry. Now there was something different, hope. Michael ran a hand through his hair, looking at Sarah intently. The truth is, we were going through the hardest time of our lives that night. He glanced at Emily, who nodded, encouraging him to continue. I had just lost my job. We had been scraping by for weeks, but that night we were out of options. We had just enough left to cover a few essentials, and even then, we weren't sure how long they would last. Emily's voice broke slightly as she spoke. We didn't know what to do. We didn't want our kids to see us fall apart. And then you came along. She took a deep breath, blinking away tears. You were a stranger, yet you stepped in without hesitation. That kindness. It gave us hope when we had none. Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she listened. She had no idea how much that one small gesture had meant to them. Michael continued. That night, I made a promise to myself that if we ever got back on our feet, we would find you. We would do something to show you how much your kindness meant. He placed the envelope on the table between them and slid it towards Sarah. She hesitated before picking it up, her hands slightly trembling as she opened it. Inside was a letter and something else. A check. Sarah's eyes widened as she stared at it. It wasn't just a thank you note. It was a life-changing amount of money. What? Sarah gasped, shaking her head. No, I can't accept this. Emily reached for her hand. Please, she said. Just hear us out. Michael leaned forward. After that night, I found a job. And not just any job. An opportunity that changed our lives. I worked harder than I ever had before, determined to make something of myself. And somehow, things just kept getting better. One promotion led to another. Before we knew it, we were stable again. More than stable. Emily smiled. And the whole time, we kept thinking about you, about how that one moment of kindness set everything in motion. Michael nodded. We wanted to do something meaningful, something that could change your life the way you changed ours. We don't know what struggles you might be facing, but we want you to have this. We want you to know that good things come back around. Sarah's eyes welled up as she looked at them. She had never done anything with the expectation of getting something in return, but here they were, sitting in her living room, offering her something she never could have imagined. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just money. This was a second chance, a new beginning. But even as the shock settled in, doubt crept into her mind. Could she really accept this? Was it right? She looked back at Michael and Emily, seeing the sincerity in their eyes. And in that moment, she realized this was bigger than just her. This was a reminder that kindness had a way of coming full circle. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, I don't know what to say. Emily squeezed her hand again. Just say yes. And as Sarah sat there, her life forever changed. She knew that this was only the beginning. Sarah sat there, staring at the check, her mind spinning. It was an amount that could change everything for her. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that accepting it was too much. I don't know if I can take this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael leaned forward. Sarah, We know how this feels. We've been in that position where kindness feels too big to accept. But think about it this way. If you hadn't helped us that night, where would we be now? You didn't hesitate to step in when we needed it the most. Please, let us do the same for you. Emily nodded. This isn't charity. It's gratitude. And it's something we want to do from our hearts. Sarah's eyes welled with tears. She had spent years working hard, doing her best to stay afloat, always putting others before herself. There had been moments when she had struggled, moments when she had wondered if anyone even noticed how much she gave. And now, here she was, on the receiving end of kindness so profound that she could barely process it. She took a deep breath. Okay, she said finally, her voice shaking. I'll accept it. Michael and Emily both smiled, relief washing over their faces. The children, who had been sitting quietly, clapped their hands excitedly. Sarah let out a small laugh, wiping at her tears. I still can't believe this is happening. Michael grinned. Believe it, and promise us one thing. When the time comes, when you see someone who needs help, you'll do what you always do. Sarah nodded. I promise. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's life began to change in ways she never could have imagined. She was able to finally take a step back and breathe. She paid off lingering debts that had been weighing on her for years. She took the time to focus on things she had put on hold, dreams, passions, and even relationships she had neglected because she had always been too busy trying to survive. But more than anything, the experience shifted something inside her. She had always believed in kindness, but now she truly understood its power. One afternoon, she sat in her favorite coffee shop, watching as people moved about their day. At the counter, a young woman was fumbling through her wallet, her face flushing with embarrassment. Sarah didn't hesitate. She stood, walked over, and tapped the woman on the shoulder. Let me take care of it. The woman looked up, surprised. Oh no, I couldn't. Sarah smiled. It's okay. Just pay it forward when you can. And just like that, another cycle of kindness began. Because sometimes the smallest moments, one decision, one gesture, can change everything.